this is the story of my old boss in jazz radio from many years ago, and a very famous musician, at least in the jazz community. One of my favorite trumpet players, besides Miles Davis, a great musician with an awesome career, but once again, people skills, interpersonal, skills, quality of personality, not as high level as one would hope. This is not something that I was personally involved in. In other words, I wasn't there. I have this on secondhand knowledge from a very high authority. I have it in high authority from secondhand knowledge. So I know this is true and it happened. And if anybody wanted to challenge it and say, oh, you're making that up or what are you talking about? I know, at least on our end, who was there. So I would know who was there. I'm not sure who was in this person's entourage. But yeah, so I'm confident, is what I'm saying, in the veracity of the tale that I'm about to tell you, even though I wasn't actually there. Back in the day at this local station, we used to do a lot of remotes for National Public Radio, for NPR. We did, there was a jazz concert series that I forget the name of now, but it was from all around the country and around the world, and stations would send a team to record a performance and then upload it to the satellite, and it would get, you would have to sign a contract with NPR and get approval and all these things, but then you would get the honor of having your local show on this series. And we did a handful of those. I helped out on those recordings and those remotes, did some things at the University of Buffalo, things like that. It was a good experience. So I did a few of these, but I wasn't on this particular one. But my boss, John Hunt, who is well known in jazz circles, well known in Buffalo, he passed away many years ago, not that long after this story occurred, from cancer. He was a cancer survivor and a cancer patient at the time of this situation. And we had signed an agreement with Freddie Hubbard and his band, signed the paperwork to record them at the Tralfamadore Cafe, and then to present that to the network. Actually, there was also paperwork for that thing to be presented. It was already a done deal. So everything was in order, contractually, on both ends. It was an agreement signed with Freddie Hubbard and his group and his record label, and also National Public Radio. So it was going to be presented on the air in this concert series. And we went, did the recording. From all that I've heard, a great show. I wasn't able to be there. And then at the end of the night, Freddie was unhappy with his performance. I was told, I don't know exactly what the situation was. I'm not a doctor, and I couldn't diagnose it on the internet long distance anyway, if I was. But I was told, high on PCP, in quotes. I don't know what that means, if that was like a phrase or they meant literally high on PCP. But Freddie was impaired, let's say, and was displeased with his performance and demanded the master tapes. They were not something that our staff was willing to give up easily, and I guess members of an entourage, security, sort of forced them to basically turn them over and tear up the contract. What do you want to do at that point? Do you want to call the police? What do you do? You have basically a civil disagreement with a threat of bodily harm, and you've got staff to deal with it. You want to get out of there safely, so you say, okay, here's the tapes. Unfortunately, it didn't end with no violence, because before John was willing to give them up, by the way, John wore an eye patch on this eye from having years before lost it to cancer. And I believe at the time he was back undergoing treatment. Freddie, high on PCP, sucker punched him on that side of his face. So I lost a lot of respect for Freddie Hubbard that night that I heard about that event. And to this day, when someone mentions him, there's no denying his history, his musical talent, his recorded legacy, but I will always call him Freddie K.O. Hubbard. Tongue-in-cheek K.O., of course. Sucker puncher that he was. So if I ever play his music and announce it to anybody, if anybody ever mentions him, I will often say, oh yeah, Freddie K.O. Hubbard. And until today, I haven't been willing to necessarily just throw out there why. I'll wait for people to ask me. Because he was a sucker puncher, that's why. And because he was high on drugs and hit one of my friends. So, once again, the moral of the story, hard to say. When you sign a contract, I guess you should be packing as well to make sure you can enforce it. Especially in the jazz business with musicians that may be impaired by substances. That's today's story.